So we're here with Nick, one of my students in the mastermind. Nick worked with me for about 6 months now, still doing a little bit of work with me in his first rehab. I really wanted to let Nick share some of his story of how he got into this with me and, some of his journey, some of the things that might be helpful for people out there. Nick, do you mind sharing a little bit about your story, where you were before you met up with me and got in the mastermind group?
Yeah, yeah. My wife and I tried to do this flipping thing probably about 12 years ago. It's like 2006, 2007. We took a second loan out on our house. Man, once we took that second loan out, it kind of all went downhill from there. We started paying off our cars and all that, credit cards, and then we did the flip. It ended up taking us 12 months. And by the end of the flip, I think we were probably negative about $15,000 because we spent so much money on the second loan. One thing I tried to do on my first flip 12 years ago was do 80% of the work myself. Unless you don't have a job, a 9 to 5, and you can do this full time, you got to learn how to do it using, contractors that know what they're doing and then stay in your budget. Doing a regular job, a 9 to 5, and then trying to do this as well, it's almost automatic failure.
Yeah, it's funny. And yeah, for sure, man. That's I found that to be the case too. Now, you've been working with me about 6 months. I know you took a couple months to get your first deal, which
Mhm.
I love talking about that a little bit because I think a lot of people hear all these like overnight success, get rich, get quick,
Right.
kind of go to a weekend, you'll learn everything there is about house flipping. I mean, it took you a few months to get your deal, but like you
Mhm.
got a deal when you got it. It was like, and you knew it was a deal. That was the thing that I was really proud of. Like you knew the numbers and knew the math was right. You were able to analyze it. And that's not something people can do even once they've done 5 or 10 flips all that well.
Well, it's really frustrating, especially if I didn't have you, trying to look through the MLS without really knowing how to look through it. It looks like there's 1,000 deals on MLS until you really look at them and know how to dwindle them down right, because that's the first mistake that you can make is looking at that. Oh, why don't anybody have this? Is a perfect deal. There's reasons why you got to sit there and compare deals on MLS to ones that make sense to you, because without the training, like I said, I could get on there and it looks like there's 1,000 deals on there.
Yeah, you could
You
get
know, you
lost in it, right? You could get
get
lost sitting
lost
there
in it.
looking MLS forever.
You get lost in it. And even once I did get the training and knew what I was looking for, now when you're actually ready to pull the trigger, that's when it becomes hard to find something, because it seems like you go there, you look at the house, and I did a lot of this myself. I did a lot of mistakes that you warned us not to do. I wasted a lot of my own time going to look at deals that were probably only 2 or 3 star deals. Once I learned how to really look at those 4 and possibly 5 star deals, that was when things started. Even when I got the nose on the contract, I really started feeling comfortable. Walking into the house and feeling comfortable, like, hey, this is what this number is going to be. And I can't see doing that without having that proper training, because the MLS, $5,000, $10,000 can throw you off and put you behind the 8 ball right away on your first or second flip.
When you say that, I know we talk about this all the time, right? You lose and win deals over 5 to 10K. So if you're offering
Mhm.
5 to 10K less because you walk in and think the flip's say 60K, but your average competitor, flipper X, who's doing maybe 5 or 10 houses a year, understands estimating repairs and construction better and can do it for 50, like he's going to
Right,
offer 10K more than you, and you're going to lose every single time. And that's a
right.
big thing we worked on, right? Is getting the numbers down. And you don't mind if I share some of your
That's fine.
Facebook journey, because
Yeah.
like, I mean, so I don't know if I even seen this, but like Nick was posting on one of the groups locally, and he's like, I'm looking for a roofer to do the roofer
Oh,
X. And dude,
yeah,
the comments that Nick got was like, oh
yeah,
God, no way, get real. Like, if you can
right.
find a roofer to do it that cheap, then let me know. And then meanwhile, you literally got it done for something really close to the number you're
I
trying to
got
get.
it close. I mean,
Yeah, it was close, right?
it was still hard for me to find with the roof, but I still was $3,000 and $4,000 cheaper than with the estimates I was getting from companies.
Yeah, well, the
Um,
ones you were getting from other rehabbers on Facebook was the part that I mean, the point I
yeah,
was making, right? Is that, and
right,
it's not like, so this isn't about knowing how to do it like super cheap. It's about like,
right.
if your competitors are paying 8K for a roof and you can get it done for 5K, you've literally created 3K in competitive advantage. And now, if you do that across the whole job, you start
Mhm.
being able to win more often where people can't win, like the
Right.
MLS and whatever you want to do, bandit signs, anything.
What I'm really learning to do now is manage my money or on the property, to where if I do go a little bit over budget on one thing, I'm able to save adjust my costs on another thing. I'm really learning to manage. In mid project, I'm learning just to shuffle things around to make things work.
Dude, so
So,
so far it took a couple months to find your first deal. Then you had a little bit of problems getting it settled, but you finally got it settled. You're working
oh
on it
yeah.
now. I know you're like halfway through it roughly. What do you feel like the profit is? Just estimating. I know you got a deal. You found it on the MLS, so you didn't have to
Mhm.
market for it, which was awesome. And what is
Right.
your anticipated profit roughly, like your net profit? We always like to talk net
Well,
profit.
we were looking at like 30,000, but we've been looking in a house, two houses in the neighborhood actually sold for a little bit more than what we thought. And there's one right across the street that's getting ready to go up for sale that's fully rehabbed as well. So I'm kind of, hoping maybe we could get a little 5 grand more than what we were thinking. But even if we went with the 205 mark, it'd be 30 grand. And then I'd be taking home about 20 because I got about $10,000 in interest in loans that I took out for the gap for that startup money.
Yeah.
I took out 40,000 to have capital to start the job and for the closing.
That's a really interesting subject. So Nick, and obviously you started talking about it, but Nick's not obviously rich. I mean, he's a
Uh,
working class guy. You're not poor either. You're not like
right.
diving dumpsters to eat or anything, but he's just a normal guy, right? No, but most people don't have 50, 60K sitting in their bank account. Not an
Uh-huh.
average American these days, unless they are truly wealthy. Most people flipping don't have big bank accounts. So one of the things
Right.
you did, right, and you don't mind sharing, is you got some gap funding, a little bit
Yeah.
expensive, but better than a
Mhm.
partner, right? And you're in
Yeah.
now.
The money's out there. I mean, I have a bankruptcy on my credit report from 10 years ago that's just about to come up, but it's off, but it's still on there. And I was still able to achieve $40,000, two $20,000 loans.
Yeah, so basically
Um,
gap funding, right? And then you use that to go talk with a hard money lender, and that became
yeah.
your so
Mhm.
essentially you're kind of no money in. You borrowed the money, kind of do the gap funding, and then you went to a
Yeah.
hard money lender, and now you
Right.
the money came from other places.
The money's coming from other places, and I'm probably going to be around $8,000 in interest once all this is paid off, and I pay back that $40,000 because it's
Okay.
costing me about $1,000 a month. I mean, about $800 a month in interest between
Roughly.
the two
Okay.
loans. But the money's there. I mean, yeah, I had to get started somewhere, and that was I didn't have anybody who was going to lend me the money. I had the money within 2 days.
That's
Uh,
great.
and I actually got funny story. Once I had the $40,000, I was so nervous, and I actually called you one. And I was like, I think I'm going to give one of them back. And you were like, man, just hold on to it, And I held on. I floated that money for about almost 3 months. It was 3 months before it did. It started getting scary, but if you like, I go back to the beginning. If you have training and you know what you're looking for, that deal's going to come. It might be 2 months, it might be 3 months, it might be 2 weeks. If you put the effort into it, you're going to find that deal.
Yeah, and you had the money to back it up, which was the big
Mhm.
piece of it. Because I've seen a lot of students, and this is something we teach. We make sure you have the money so that when you do see a deal, you're ready to pull the trigger. Because a lot of times when people aren't getting the results they want, they're not emotionally ready to get those results. And I can tell you, if you know in the back of your heart, we don't actually have the money figured out, well, yeah, that's going to stop you from making a strong offer and really going after
Mhm.
a deal when you kind of like nobody wants to buy the deal and then figure it out later. Can I afford it? Right. We want
Right.
to know ahead of time. So a lot of times people say, if you get a great deal, the money will come. I actually believe set the money up and then emotionally
Mhm.
you will go find the deal to back because
Oh,
you have the money. That's my opinion.
and it motivates you to go get it because I don't want to sit on that money. The faster now I really have to find a deal.
One thing that I took a note of that was really interesting with Nick is that like 2 months you weren't able to find a deal and you had the heat of that money and interest and
Mm-hmm.
you were paying for it and it was stressing you out a little. But what was really interesting is that Nick found a deal and then when he found one deal, he found a second. And
Right.
it's so common that happens. Like all my students go from like it's like all the work you do finally it
Mm-hmm.
just all comes together. Everything just hits that perfect. All the stars align, and next thing you know, you go like I can't find a deal for 2 months. Now I got
That
three. And what am I
right.
going to do with them? You end up selling me one of them. I'm actually
Right.
renovating the one he sold me. And he chose the one that was closer to home. About the same
Mhm.
profit in both deals, but one just happened to be a little closer for him. So he's like, I'll take that one. And I was like, yeah, choose
Right.
whatever you want. I
Yeah.
appreciate you giving me the
Right.
other one. But it was cool because like you found two. And I've seen that with other students where they went like 3 months, they can't get a deal. And then finally all the work just clicks. And there's like
Mhm.
three deals in 3 weeks. And
Yeah.
because now, and then the cool thing is, and you haven't realized this yet, is when you get back to it, when it's time to find flip two,
which is going to be very soon. I was going to
Yep.
say probably about 2 weeks. I'll start looking
Yep. And when you
again.
do, you'll be ready. That's the thing. It's going to feel
Hmm.
different. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to, you know, where to put the effort at, right? When you
Hmm.
figure out like where to put the effort, then it's almost like a faucet you can turn on. And it's
Right.
pretty amazing. It takes time, but it's amazing. There's a shift, right? In our coaching program, we focus on things as you need it. There's a lot of
Hmm.
programs that teach you everything. Like, I mean, there's a million things you can learn about real estate, but really the only thing you need to know is how to get the money and how to find the deal. And then once you understand that, then you need
Right.
to learn the construction part and how to get the renovation done. And it's
Right.
hard to think of both of them at the same time because they're really big subjects and they're very overwhelming. So we
Hmm.
really focus on one when you need it. And then, okay, now you don't really need a deal. You need the construction piece. So
Right.
you're smart. You're doing
Yeah.
exactly what I teach. And a
Hmm.
lot of students have had great results because it's kind of a big myth that you don't need to understand construction to be a house flipper. A lot of people are
Hmm.
like, oh man, you know, get a GC or get this, and you can get some people to do work for you. But as
Hmm.
the leader and as the guy whose money's in this, you need to know what's going on and you need to be the first to know when something's
Right.
not right so you can fix it.
Right. Right. And yeah, especially just getting down prices, because if you don't know any construction at all, some prices can sound really scary. It might be a good deal, or vice versa. You might say, "Oh, that's a good deal," but you could have got it done for 2 grand cheaper. So I would really, just as much as you're putting effort into to finding deals, I would also, as you teach us, is learn as much about construction as you can. Ask questions. When you're there with the contractor, or the person doing work, ask questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing it that way? Why are you doing it this way? You just pick up as much information as you can. So as your journey continues, you'll feel more and more comfortable about the next steps you're taking.
That's awesome, man. That's really good feedback. I'm sure people get a lot of value out of listening to this. How do you feel like the systems that you've learned in the mastermind have helped you out and really, kind of helped you make better decisions in your business?
What helps me is knowing that you have made all the mistakes before. Where you're afraid of learning, where you're afraid of making a mistake, you got to realize that the person you're learning from has made them mistakes already. So the whole reason you're taking this mastermind training is to lessen those mistakes, because you're learning from somebody who's mastered this flipping business. The good thing with you is I have direct access to you. I mean, I've never maybe more than 24 hours without hearing from you from a phone call. Usually it's within that day. Going through the mastermind and knowing that I have a coach who is there with me, walking me through step by step, and that have somebody that really truly cares about my outcome, because he really thinks it's a reflection on him as well. That's really comforting, knowing that I have a support in my corner anytime I need to go get it, and that I have direct access to you. Unlike other programs that I have looked into after. I didn't look at them before you. I started comparing other ones after you, just to see. And you don't have direct access to these people that are doing these coaching businesses. The one I found is he lives out in Las Vegas, or California, but he has, I think they called them pod coaches here.
Yeah,
So you're not even
I've been
dealing
in
with,
a coaching program like that. Yeah, and
yeah,
I had done like 100 flips at the time, and they were like, "No, you'll get to work with this guy who was really awesome." And I was really excited to work with him. And then he paired me up with a coach who'd done 2 flips, and the
right,
guy
right,
was super knowledgeable for 2 flips, but I still wasn't what I paid 30K,
right,
so I didn't feel really great about that. And so that's what Nick's talking about is something I'm really passionate about. We keep the mastermind really small, and I do want to be the person that works with people. I want to make sure they got direct access to and that's why our coaching program always stays really small. It's not
right.
nationwide. It's usually 12 to 15 people max so we can get the results. Everyone in the group's crushing it, right? They're all getting
Well,
deals.
that's the good thing is when Mike's not available, the other 20 people in the group are,
Yeah.
and they might have, three of them might be already dealing with the problem that you're dealing with. So they're able to help you, even though they're rookies too, or they're only 3 or 4 flips in. Not only do I have access to you, I got access to the other 20 people that are currently in the group as well.
Yeah,
So
I'm always amazed at the stuff I learned from someone who hasn't even done a flip yet. It's always like when you're humble and you pay attention, there's
mhm.
always something really cool. Nick actually is the first person who taught me you can go out and get two $20,000 loans at high
Mhm.
interest and be like, forget the partner, because yes, you're going to pay some high interest, but it's still cheaper than taking a partner on you to give 50%. A guy I played poker with was like, I got some money, like from this thing, some kind of lawsuit or something, and I want to flip a house. And he's like, I'm going to go flip with someone else, or you can do it with me. And like, he basically just put a fire under my butt, but his money was what made it real. Like, because I didn't. I mean, I heard all the no money down stuff and all that, but you need money, right? You got to be able to pay some money. Like you ponied up, right? You paid to be in the coaching program. It wasn't free. You had to make that investment, and then you had to go out and get the loans. You had to do the work, and you did everything you were supposed to do. And there'll be a time, I imagine, like it is for a lot of my students and people that are in the industry that I know who really follow systems and are smart and really masters of the game. There's always this time, like many years later, when you're like, man, I'm so glad I made that choice. For me, I invested $15K when I was like dead broke, and I put it on like 5 credit cards. And the guy showed me how to take my already maxed out credit cards and then call the credit card company and like ask them for like extensions of my credit limit. And literally I got about $7,600 in money and extended my credit limit. And then he let me pay $200 a month, which by the way, I really didn't have the $200 a month, especially after like maxing out my credit cards. I didn't know where any of this was going to come from. But now when I look back 10 years later, if I didn't make that decision, where would I be? Because I hated the job.
Right.
Like the job I was doing. I was laying hardwood floors. It paid well, but it was not my dream, and I never liked it. It was just all I had.
I didn't want to look back and be like, what if I really invested myself and tried this stuff, So when the opportunity was there and then you came along in my life through that mutual friend, I was like, man, something's telling me. Because I've always thought about, even before meeting you, I always thought about doing it again. I was just too scared. And everything just lined up, and I was like, we're going to do it. Because I don't want to be, 55 years old to be in, what could have been? What could have happened?
Dude, that's the worst, isn't it?
I do it now with other stuff. Yeah.
I know. I mean, I'm doing it with some other stuff, but we're not with flipping anymore, but I'm doing it with other stuff. And I'm always like, hey, I don't want to live my life that way. So that's a powerful message, man. Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. Overall, how happy would you say you are when you made the decision to join the Mastermind group?
Oh, I wouldn't even flip the house without the Mastermind group. The Mastermind group is what started it. Once I invested in myself, that's what got me even more motivated to do it. To start the Mastermind, it was a small investment into myself, but I was thinking, this is the worst that could happen is I lose the money that I put in the Mastermind. But even you said you wouldn't let me lose my money. So that was really motivating. On the first phone call, you said you would be, I'm not going to you're going to get your money back. So that was really motivating as well, having a coach tell you that, hey, my job now is to not only teach you, but to get your money back from this training.
True. You didn't know I was qualifying you because I'm very selective. I like you. I've always, I knew you liked you and it was all good. But at the same time, the worst people is people because they come in, they fluff off, they spend the money, and next thing you know, you're like, oh yeah, man, I spent a bunch of money on Mike and I never got anything out of it. It's really highly important to me that when I let people in, they're ready to do the work. They understand this doesn't get rich quick. It's not an overnight success, right? And if you do the work, I can virtually guarantee results. I literally have almost 100% results with anyone who does the work. And the only we laugh about this, but there's only a few people who haven't made their money back who've invested, and I'm currently searching for them. I can't find them. I'm like went on like witness protection. They won't call me back because they're tired of me bugging them to be like, hey, come back in, man. You invested. I don't want you losing your money. Come back in. You're welcome back when you're ready. And I still have hope that they'll come back, but it's so few people.
Another comforting thing was you didn't take my money right away. I went through an hour, interview process on the phone just to make sure that I was really in for, that this is really what I wanted to do. It wasn't like, here, give me my money and then we'll talk. You talked to me first, or Delonte talked to me first for an hour. I think we went over an hour on the phone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, it wasn't a program where it was like, here, give me a check, or here, give me a credit card. It was, we want to make sure you really, really want to do this.
Yeah,
so that was really comfort too. You weren't just taking people's money. You were really making sure this is what they wanted to do with their future, and you are qualifying them before they qualified themselves.
Well, honestly, house flipping is not for everyone. And, I know a lot of people like to say, anyone can do it. It's simple. It's easy. Listen, it's not. It's easy. Okay, I'm going to say this, and this might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's not easy. It's super hard, but it's not complicated either. right?
No.
But at the end of the day, if you just follow the systems, you do them and you stick with it until it works, you'll figure it out. No matter if you're short, tall, small, stupid, smart. Some of the hardest
Right.
people I have to teach are the ones that are too smart, MBAs and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
working
Overthink
class
things.
people. Exactly. I mean, me too. By the way, I'm like
Oh,
super.
yeah.
Dude, I like to overthink everything. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
that's probably my biggest weakness. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I've learned, and this has been a big part of what I teach people, is now how I take that ability to overanalyze and I just get really hyper focused. And then I analyze enough to be safe. And then I
Mm-hmm.
move on it. Right. And that's what you've
Right.
been learning and everyone. So like me and you analyzed your deal. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually we got to a place we both felt really comfortable. And I was like, go, man, before someone else
Yeah.
steals it, because another
Right.
person will jump on it if you don't get it.
And that's a good point right there. You take your overanalyzing and turn it into a hyper focus. They're both kind of the same thing. I mean, it's where you're just totally obsessed about one thing. But when you take all your energy and you hyper focus on what your outcome is, it's really, and you follow the steps of the program, it's really hard to mess up. Not saying that you can't mess up. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be, but the end outcome is always going to be profitable.
Yes. And there's always bumps. Look, house flipping, I'm
Mhm.
10 years into this, over 1,000 flips, and there's things that happen all the time. I mean, I've realized that a part of the calculated system that we create is that you got to add some variables into the equation. There will be some
Mhm.
bumps in the road, but if we're anticipating them and we're expecting them and they're built into the system and we know they're going to happen, then guess what? They're not that stressful. Right. When
Right.
a long time ago, I lived in this fantasy world where I thought, well, I'm going to flip houses perfectly and I'm never going to make a mistake. And, that's not very real. And you can build 7,000 checklists. You can try to be perfect, but we're human. And that's one thing you can't take out of it. But the good
Mhm.
news is the bumps in the road are so small that they kind of don't even matter anymore. And we still get to do this thing we love. And
Yeah.
eventually you get to flip houses and do more and more of it. Financial freedom. One day you'll be able to quit your job. It took me
Yeah.
about 14, 15 months before I had the courage to do it. And I had a couple flips under my belt. And
Right.
it'll be somewhere like that for you in the future. There's no timeline. It don't matter if it takes
Mm.
2 years, 6 months, as long as you got the money. So my only advice to you is obviously as you do your flip, keep your
Mhm.
money, put it in a separate bank account. That's one thing I
Yeah.
did. Someone taught me that. And it was the best advice I was ever given, because you have
Right.
a job, you can live off your job. And then maybe the first year, 18 months of flipping, take that money and just keep piling it up. So then you have your own money to flip your house. You don't need your gap
Yeah.
funding anymore. And if you ever decide to quit, you got a lot of money in the bank and some deals going. It's a really good
Right.
place to be if you decide you don't want to do your job in the future.
Right. And you know what the coolest thing is? It's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun. It's pretty fun. If you get a rush off of it, you get a high when you actually see something that looked the way it did, and then what you physically, or you mentally and physically are doing to this. You have an outcome. You have a finished product, and it's really fun seeing the progress. Almost every day I ride over to the house just to look at it, even if I'm not doing anything.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just,
so cool to be able
uh,
to create, man. It's like I
yeah,
guess it's
yeah.
almost like our art, right?
Yeah, it's just, you see an end result coming, and it's when you see something all coming together, you get a lot of self happiness about it, or self worth.
Yeah.
Feeling you can motivate yourself a lot just by going out and seeing what you were actually doing. You took this rundown looking beauty house and are making it into something that people are going to live 20, 30, 40, maybe the rest of their life in, and it's all
It's
because you
so
got this.
true. Dude, I watched a Tony Robbins video about a week ago, and he talked about like this true secret to happiness was having small victories. And
Mhm.
as house flippers, we have a lot of challenges, but we get the opportunity to create victories almost every single day. And I believe it's the reason that since I've been a house flipper, my life has been so much better, because every day I get to win, I get to lose, and then go fight and win the battle, come back
Uh-huh.
and try again. And I just really enjoy that. And like I said, it's not for everyone. Some people are meant to
No.
have jobs, and some people are meant to be entrepreneurials deep in their heart. We'll see who it is. It does, like, there's many house flippers I know that do really well for years and do
Mhm.
both, right? And they like their job,
Right.
and that's their passion too, and they get to do both. But I was actually a guy who was definitely by nature and by DNA, I was an entrepreneurial person who was stuck in a job. And I was like, cannot
Yeah.
wait to get out of it. But, I had to make a living, I had to pay the bills.
Right.
For me, it was like it was a very happy moment. Once I got past the fear of quitting my job, it was a happy moment.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, dude, thank you, Nick. I appreciate
All
you
right.
coming on, doing this testimony. I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of people. Means
Yeah.
a lot to me, man. It's Nick's actually a person. I
Yeah.
know he's a little dark there, but I appreciate it, man. Good stuff. There he is. He's a real dude, man.
Yeah.
He's on our 10X group, our free group. If you want to check
Yeah.
him out, he posts a lot and shares a lot of his
Mhm.
story. And Nick, I'd love to jump back with you when you're done your flip. Maybe come
Yeah.
out and just check it out, because I know it'll be done shortly, and I'd love to see the end result, man.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Awesome. Have a good evening. See you,
All right,
Nick.
Mike. See you. Bye bye.
Thanks.